Hello, Blackhawks fans, and welcome into the Four Feathers podcast. It's Johnny Nani, cracking one here alongside Tony Marchese for a little Thursday Hawks happy hour. How you doing, my man?
Johnny, I am doing splendid. It is Thursday. As you say, the weekend starts on Thursday. We're going to talk a little Blackhawks hockey. They've been doing some winning. We're probably going to have a lot of Patrick Kane talk here. Johnny, I'm ready to get into it.
We're going to have a lot of Patrick Kane talk, Tony, because we're in an interesting situation. We are here live Thursday, February 23rd, 5:50 p.m., and we've got the New York Rangers are rumored to be a destination for Patrick Kane, and they've scratched a couple of pieces that could potentially be parts. Like I said, nothing is official yet. Nothing's come to fruition. However, the rumblings that started yesterday that the Rangers, despite already acquiring Tarasenko, were not completely out on Kane, would try to make it work. Obviously, a third team needs to be part of this if it's going to happen, Tony. But that's kind of, we're on red alert right now, and that's why the title of this episode is Patrick Kane as the Blackhawks roll the buzz.
Yeah, I was not really thinking that we would potentially be live while something might happen. This is we're just gonna have to work through this, Johnny. The eyes are glued to Twitter right now. I'm sure you're scrolling too as well. So for those of you who are joining us right now, if you see something breaking, throw it in the comments. We're looking too. This is sort of a really weird time, and I've got that ominous feeling right now, Johnny. I don't know about you. The hair is standing up on my arms a little bit.
I feel like there's a dark cloud moving over Chicago right now. Just because it feels like it, honestly, I'll be honest, earlier today, even last night when Patrick Kane goes on the TNT interview and says, "I got nothing for you." Still no decision because obviously he holds all the cards. We know with his no movement clause, he's got to waive it. He can basically pick where he wants to go. Still hadn't made up his mind yet there. And then you get that report from the New York Post. Like I mentioned, we also touched on it at ontapsportsnet.com. You can go and check that out there for the initial one. But basically, the Rangers are still pushing. And with those trade-related reasons, Tony, just earlier today, I was watching NHL Network, and for one of those early games, Washington Capitals are set to play the Ducks tonight. They scratched Dmitry Orlov, Garnet Hathaway, and those guys ended up being shipped out. That news probably broke, I don't know, close to like half an hour-ish after that happened when Washington released that. So feels like the same situation. I don't know about you right now with the New York Rangers.
It does. And I mean, we were just seconds away from going live here when we got that message across our OnTap Sportsnet Slack channels that this was going on. Johnny, talk a little bit about these two pieces on the New York Rangers side that have been scratched. Give me a little rundown on who these guys are that I'm not going to be able to pronounce their names if they come to the Chicago Blackhawks. Dude, that's a good place to start.
This is going to be new for me too, because I'm in uncharted territory not being able to pronounce one of these. It says Vitaly Kravtsov. That one's fairly straightforward. And Jake Leschyshyn. Dude, seriously, names that not totally familiar with here, and very well potentially could become Blackhawks in the next hour or so. That's scary thought. Here. Yeah. Scary thought. But there would obviously be more to it than that. And like I mentioned, anything that happens, if it is going to be with the Rangers, requires a third party, and almost any other team, right? Just because of Patrick Kane's cap hit. We've seen it. Other deals have been brokered by a team stepping in, willing to take salary. When the Rangers themselves, when they previously got Tarasenko, that deal was only made possible by the Minnesota Wild receiving a 4th-round draft pick to take on some of Vladimir Tarasenko's contract. So we're in that same boat here. But obviously, Rangers looking to load up. There's the storylines out the ass, Tony. The Panarin Kane reunion, the hole in the top 6 because everybody's favorite holdout player, Jimmy Vesey, has been playing in the top 6, and that's been kind of a rumbling around the Rangers fan base. And I think he's just kind of a running joke, at least for you and me here. So that's the hole that the Rangers are looking to fill, and it's developing live as we speak. I need a sip.
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. One thing that we do have across here from Stefan Rosner, beat reporter for, I believe, the New York Islanders. Per a trusted source to him, New York Rangers are hammering out the framework for a deal involving Patrick Kane. It sounds like it could be one that favors the Rangers. That's a tweet that's up there at Stefan _Rosner. We've got that. I've never heard of him before, Johnny. I don't know how credible that is, but obviously with the scratches, with the rumors that have involved Patrick Kane. We could be getting rather close to this. Nothing from the big accounts yet that I've seen. One thing I do want to get to is the hashtag Keep Kane movement that we've been sort of talking about here over the past couple of days. Let's just rewind, Johnny. Let's rewind back to Tuesday night. And you and I were in attendance for a game that Patrick Kane did some Patrick Kane-esque things. Let's start right there.
Yeah.
Take it through that.
Right. So obviously the Blackhawks have been hot lately, and that is mostly due to Patrick Kane's surge as of late. He's been on fire ever since that Friday night game in Ottawa. He had a pair in that one to end that road trip. They ended on a high note with a win, came back, beat Toronto, who they had lost to previously that week before. Kaner had a hat trick, saluted the crowd, felt like, oh, is this going to be the last home game? This thing's been building, right? Ever since then. And then back home again on Tuesday, comeback win against the Vegas Golden Knights that you and I got to be in attendance for, and it was awesome. If you follow along with us on social media at Four Feathers Pod, both on Twitter and Instagram, and at OnTap Sportsnet, those same platforms as well, you saw some of the excitement that was in the building. And Tony, when he had that breakaway slap shot at the very end of regulation, which obviously did not, at the end of overtime, which obviously did not end up counting. But that was one of the most electric moments there, and maybe the most electric non-goal ever in Blackhawks history there.
I mean, he's got to be up there with the Andrew Shaw headbutt goal, right?
Given the circumstances, though, of the, and I know that, obviously playoffs with the Andrew Shaw one there, and you could talk about the Nicholas Hjalmarsson, that penalty with the, Game 7, a lot of the ones up there, but with the building kind of on edge, we've been wondering for those last two, really, is this going to be Patrick Kane's last home game? This is the last time we're going to see him at the United Center. Very real thought that was creeping in everyone's mind. That would have been an absolute storybook ending if it were to be. They did come back and win the game. Puck don't lie, right?
Puck don't lie.
Come back. They won it in the shootout. Proceeded to. Tyler Johnson took care of business there. I loved how Kane tried the clapper, though, don't he? In the shootout, because that's what he beat him on, coming down on the breakaway. Fuck it. Try it again.
Hey, why not, right? I mean, it was an absolutely electric moment, Johnny, and you talk about how loud that place was when Patrick Kane winds up, just a full slapper, man. I mean, we talk about just fucking cranking on the show all the time, and that's what he did there. I don't know. I've not gone back and watched the actual replay footage of that goal, because I will forever, just as a Blackhawks fan, choose to remember that, he scored the game winner. That's what happened. And, the result is the same, just an epic breakaway. And, the way that he's played with Max Domi over the past couple of games here since being reunited with him has just been, incredible hockey to watch. A lot of Blackhawks fans entering this season were sort of skeptical of what the product on the ice was going to be, and rightfully so. I mean, this is a bottom of the NHL team. But they haven't been playing like that lately. And like you said, man, it's been on the back of mainly Patrick Kane. Jonathan Tave's been out of the lineup for a while. Max Domi's helped them out quite a bit here. But man, I mean, that has been some vintage Patrick Kane. And you talk about a player who, we released the news here and it came out from The Athletic. The whole league knows that Patrick Kane needs hip surgery. And then all of a sudden, by the end of play yesterday, I think it was pretty clear that Patrick Kane hip is just fine. It's just fine. And the trade interest has gone through the roof with these last few performances.
Right. And there's a number of factors here, Tony. And obviously the Blackhawks played another game then after that one that we had just discussed, the Vegas one, possibly last one at home for Patrick Kane. They were on the road at Dallas and got down early. They got themselves in the 3-0 hole, right? They came back and they won that game. And obviously it was on the backs of Max Domi and Patrick Kane there. And in the post-game show, I was listening to, Colby Cohen, Pat Boyle, Kaylee Chelios, Scott Darling. They were discussing all these factors here, and what's gotten into Patrick Kane. All this is it motivation for wanting to show out for teams, all of that. And the touchdown, the hip injury. Well, he couldn't be doing this, right? If everybody knows that he needs hip surgery and it's so bad that teams don't want to touch him. I feel like that is something they brought up, and I agree with it. Maybe some, information spreading around the league, some PR stuff to maybe lower that price, right? Put some of the bad press out there a little bit on it, make it a little less, attainable, or, fellow or opposing GMs, right? Say the Stars wanted to make a push because they need some offensive help. As we saw, they kind of dried up after a certain point last night. And maybe that's coming out from, the New York, talking heads to kind of sway that. And that's kind of how I took it, because it's something that I think he probably does need that. And that was Elliot Friedman that said that initially. And that's, you have your takes on Elliot, much as you want. Any of these guys, any of these reporters, right? There's a certain level of trust that you have in any of them. But I will say that I think that that's a thing. And you saw Patrick Kane actually have an IR stint. Okay. So it was aggravated, I believe, a little bit right on New Year's Day when he took a hit in that game against the Sharks. And then there was the subsequent IR stint that I mentioned there. I do think it's something that needs to be cleaned up, but he's showing that he can still play through it. So if it is his choice, what he wants to do, go and chase a cup here with a contending team, it's his choice to do so, and they're going to deal with it. And he's going to push through it and play, and then possibly delay his start to next season if he really does need that cleanup this offseason.
Well, Johnny, I mean, let's just go back a little bit. When these reports came out, we were doing a couple shows and talking about predictions, who's going, who's staying, and mainly around Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. Obviously, the Jonathan Toews, I guess, sort of storyline came to a conclusion just a couple of days ago with the answer that Jonathan Toews is going to be out for some foreseeable time into the future, dealing with long COVID and his immune disorder that he has. And so you, I believe, were of the original mindset that it'll be Jonathan Toews that goes and Patrick Kane that stays. And, that sort of flipped real quick when we had the news about Jonathan Toews come out here.
Reminder, that was before any of the long
Correct.
COVID comments and any of the scratches before that. This is when we're talking in like early January, right?
Yep. And here we are today. I mean, this is just sort of, again, as I'll tell the listeners, it's sort of surreal that we're sitting here just gathering all of this information in real time. I did see a tweet from Barstool Chief. He reached out to his sources. They won't say anything. I mean, this thing is, it feels close. But I'm still hoping for the hashtag Keep Kane movement to, kind of get back going here. Maybe this is a big nothing. Maybe we're just sitting here, New York, scratching people. Maybe they are. I'm sure they're talking.
Right.
And up until this point, Johnny, we haven't heard that Patrick Kane has, agreed to give a team out as of last night.
And remember the volatility of the scratched for trade-related reasons. Arizona started this. They were kind of one of the first ones to do this with Jacob Chychrun. And I know this has been a long, ongoing thing with Jacob Chychrun dating back to last year. There were, rumblings, and it happened all summer too. Was he going to get moved on draft day? And it's ramping back up here. But they were the ones they scratched Jacob Chychrun, even though he's their top defenseman there down in Arizona, and a deal still hasn't gotten done. And maybe that's because Arizona's asking price is too high. I've heard that from a lot of the, big reporters in that realm. And then nothing ever came there. Whereas we just saw how quickly it escalated with the Washington Capitals and Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway scratched like less than an hour ago. And they're already shipping up to Boston, quite literally.
Yeah, it'll be crazy to see how fast this moves here, man. The Hawks have been busy. Kyle Davidson's been busy. We've seen a couple of moves so far. Johnny, why don't we touch on those and we can get back to some Patrick Kane here talk while we sort of evaluate what's going on.
Right. Yeah. So Kyle Davidson has been a little bit busy as of late. So there was a trade yesterday, and that was basically a salary dump for the Ottawa Senators, right? Nikita Zaitsev, that's a big money contract that they're in a interesting situation out there in Ottawa, I'd say, because they're not complete basement dwellers there. They have the ownership situation going on. Regardless, all those factors accumulate in them wanting to dump Nikita Zaitsev's contract. That's been no secret. Kyle Davidson, as our guy Ron Luce wrote at ontapsportsnet.com previously, willing to weaponize cap space, and that's exactly what he did, because the Blackhawks got themselves a nice little draft haul, Tony, especially with that second round pick in the upcoming draft. Obviously, you have Zaitsev under contract for next year too. But once again, another rebuilding season. So if he sits in the press box at the UC most nights, that's not the worst thing in the world if they want to get younger guys in on D. Or obviously, we've seen injuries, guys like Jared Tenorti, a number of guys on the blue line that can go in or out. He could be a piece that's on there. So that's for Zaitsev. But like I said, that second round pick is kind of the real selling point, probably what helped put Kyle Davidson over the top and taking that money on. And then there was also another pick, and I'm trying to track down exactly what that one was. I want to say that a fourth rounder in not this upcoming draft, though.
That was next year.
Fourth round pick in, what year?
Believe it's
2026.
2026.
Okay. So that's where they're at with Nikita Zaitsev return. But that was the first move kind of that got the ball rolling for Kyle Davidson. Then
GM Ron Luce really loves that move, by the way.
You can go check out GM Ron, who Tony's referencing there. Go check out his articles on tapsportsnet.com. Click on the Blackhawks tab. You can find he breaks these down really well. Ron's our GM of this podcast. So go and get his take on that, because he can kind of spell it out in written form a little bit longer than we can, ramble on here. Next one, though, we wake up to a bit of news this morning. Cole Gutman, who had previously been on, not Cole Gutman. Cole Gutman's already here. That was David Gust. He'd been tearing it up at Rockford, so good for him. But he was only on an AHL contract. I think they just expect him to be a guy in the A this year. He's played his way into this, and I think they foresaw moves that were going to be coming here. So they signed him to a two-way deal and recalled him too. That was kind of a, sort of precursor, you could say. And then another trade happened after that. A few hours after that, depth trade in the minors with Josiah Slavin, guy who got just a brief cup of coffee, 15 games with the Hawks last year. Forward, he's shipped out to Anaheim in exchange for Hunter Drew. And this is an interesting guy, Tony. I had to pull it up here because I'm no San Diego Gulls insider expert, but Hunter Drew came into professional hockey as a defenseman. And when you go and look at the graphic that the Blackhawks made for this trade, it's listed as forward. So you go and like, okay, what's going on here? Numbers are pretty honestly comparable to Slavin. So you're like, okay, is he playing forward? Is he playing D? Like I said, maybe someone from Anaheim can fill us in a little bit more here. However, listed as a forward, he did transition last year. I saw there was a thing about it benefiting the Gulls at that time, kind of around this time last year when he transitioned, playing some right wing. So listed as a forward on that potential placeholder for guys that may be on the move here. I saw Tab Bamford from Bleacher Nation kind of speculating that on the twitter.com machine, Tony. So that's kind of where we're at with this wheeling and dealing, and putting all these puzzle pieces together. It's looking more and more like a Patrick Kane trade maybe on the horizon.
Yeah, that's man, I really don't want this to happen. I think we've sort of expressed this in many different ways over the past couple of evenings of watching Blackhawks hockey. And if something does break here in the next few minutes, hours, days, granted we've got just about a week and some change here before the trade deadline officially passes. It will be nice, at least, to think back to these final moments that we've had with Patrick Kane in a Chicago Blackhawks jersey. You got your hat trick, you got the OT winner that we both agreed just a few minutes ago that counted, and then you had a wonderful comeback performance in Dallas to really just sink in. He was on hat trick watch just last night for a large portion of that game, which is always exciting. I wish he got that puck a little bit earlier with the empty net, Johnny, and it would have really sealed the deal. But the hashtag Keep Kane movement, you've seen tons of different Blackhawks talking heads come out here and want the Hawks to keep Patrick Kane around. The future is certainly going to be interesting here, Johnny. Without without Patrick Kane in the mix? Take me through how you're feeling right now if this were to go down.
I got to refer to our guy, Patrick Kaminsky, who has been big on the Keep Kane movement. He actually wrote a post about it on tapsportsnet.com. You can go and check it out. In these last minutes, while Kane is still officially a Hawk for the time being, he says, he put it best, says, with it seeming like a Patrick Kane trade is coming, I now know how people on death row feel. And I said, Alexa, play Hallowed Be Thy Name by Iron Maiden. That's where I'm at.
You're in the fields. It looks like a lot of people are in the fields. I'm just scrolling the Twitter feed here, and there's a lot of Patrick Kane feels. Johnny, when Marian Hossa had left the Blackhawks, obviously due to early retirement, we did an 81 for 81. Are we going to have to do 88 for 88? And how easily do you think we'd be able to get that done?
I think Patrick Kaminsky might do half of them on his own, so it'd be pretty damn easy. It'd be quick, but yeah, I think it would be more than necessary to do so, honoring the greatest Blackhawk of all time, as he'll go down when it's all said and done.
I think he absolutely will, Johnny. I just dropped Pat Kaminsky's article in the YouTube comments for anybody who wants to go give that a read. I believe the title of that is what was that?
Kaner, don't you want to stay a little
Kaner,
while?
don't you want to stay a little while? It's a great post from our guy Pat Kaminsky, and I think it's very timely considering what we have going on here. No news that I see as of this moment.
I wanted to comment on that, Tony, since you brought that up. And when we were discussing this, I know you brought up that one, was a New York Islanders insider that had said that framework for Kane deals being laid out. And obviously we have the hint with the New York Rangers PR with their scratches for trade related reasons tonight. However, I have a reporters list of Twitter, and it's all the, big name hockey reporters where you get your news from, right? Frank Cervelli, Elliot Friedman, obviously the GOAT, Bob McKenzie's on there. I know he's partial retirement, but he'll be around for Trade Center days and stuff like that. All of those guys are on there. And then of the Blackhawks reporters too, the Scott Powers, Mark Lazarus, Ben Pope, Charlie Remiliotis. Deafening silence. Nothing in the last 29 minutes. Last one was from David Pagnotta, and that was just a correction on the Capitals-Bruins trade. Some deafening silence, Tony.
It is sort of deafening silence. I don't really like the silence because it feels like it's going to give me some false hope. It's going to give me some false hope, and then we're going to get struck with something probably 5 minutes after we hop off here, and it won't be. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
That sounds like the most likely scenario. But I want to take this, as I said, with those names that I have up there that have been quiet for the last half hour here. Don't get fooled, because I've already seen a fake Darren Dredger with the the people that do the fake Adam Schefter at the NFL trade deadline, with the fake Woj at the NBA trade deadline. Don't get fooled by the fake Darren Dredger, the fake Elliot Friedman, the fake Sarah Spaghetti and Meatballs.
I thought you couldn't impersonate anybody on Twitter anymore. I thought Elon outlawed that.
Yeah, what's Elon doing on this joint?
I mean, he should be protecting the Patrick Kane trade rumor, central right now. We might need to open up a support ticket with Twitter.
Yeah, so if you see it, report it. Yeah.
I can't imagine if I was just opening my phone and scrolling past that and saw that with everything going on right now, I'd probably stop my heart for a second. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to like this when this happens, Johnny. This is worse than like a scheduled dental appointment. It's worse than anything else, because you just feel right now as if something's going to happen. On the other side of that, though, Johnny, Patrick Kane's on an expiring contract. Should he leave, do you think he's coming back? Do you think there's a chance?
Should he? Fucking absolutely, right? Come back and get all the accolades, right? And he said himself, and it was around this time last year when he said that it would, not many guys get to suit up for one organization for their whole career. And he said it would be an honor and a privilege. That's a quote from him. Once again, it was like March 2nd last year, but he did say that. So circumstances with where they are right now, he may have a brief stint with another organization. But but he could still play the majority and be obviously remembered as a Blackhawk. He'll always be remembered as a Blackhawk, but in terms of racking up those franchise accolades, something that our guy Pat Comiskey hinted on in that article that's in the comments here, and I would say it's a no-brainer. He absolutely should, but there's absolutely no guarantees. Shit, what if the Rangers do go on an absolute tear, and there's a maneuver that goes on for them to try and get him to sign, come back. The appeal of playing with Panarin. We've got these guys loaded up, and we want to try and run it back. You never know what can happen. Or there could be another team that's willing to fucking just shell out for him. That's always a possibility. And it's
the Hawks should have the cap space to do it. The Hawks should have the cap space to do it. And I think
they absolutely will. But it's, once again, I also don't think it's tough because we're talking about who's going to go down as the Blackhawks goat. And you would think, yeah, just give him the bag. Like we always talk about that in baseball, right? But it would probably be unwise for Kyle Davidson to go and sign Patrick Kane to an absolutely, ball breaking, massive AAV deal, unless you structured it in a way so that you would still have flexibility for when you want to start being good again, right?
Yeah, and that puts Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks in a really weird spot, doesn't it?
We've got okay. All right. Yeah, it does. All right. Sorry. We got a live update in here. And from the fourth period, thanks for S. Cokes bringing this to our attention. But he says, as from the fourth period, David Pagnotta on Twitter, as of the last hour, for what it's worth, Krastoff has not been informed of any potential move. Lots of New York Rangers / Patrick Kane chatter tonight, and it may get there, but this seems premature as of this minute. So the over half-hour silence has been broken. That's at the fourth period on Twitter. That's our latest that we have on Patrick Kane.
I love it, Johnny. Let's simmer in this for a little while and just know that it probably won't happen while we're on here, which is for better or for worse. I don't know how I'm going to react when this goes down. So, that's interesting. It's interesting. It's something, but nothing concrete yet. Who's going to break this, Johnny? Who do you think is going to break this? Let's play a little beat reporter guess. Who's going to get this one? Who's got the scoop?
So I want to say Elliott has been kind of the leader in this early, kind of just a little over a week out, right? Because it's next Friday, and we had the move there was, I know the Tarasenko thing happened. That was a couple of weeks ago. That was really jumping the gun on New York's part there. So I don't remember exactly who broke on that one, but I'd want to say Elliott was the most recent one that's kind of been the first out, whereas as other things have gone, Frank Spaghetti is a leading candidate up there. But right now, recent trends, I'd probably put it on Elliott.
I'll toss my hat in the ring for our guy Frank. I think he might come out of the woodwork on this one. Elliott will probably have it a couple minutes before him, but Frank's got those fast fingers. He'll get that tweet up faster than Elliott.
The thing is, Elliott will put it up, and it'll just be a very brief one, and he'll have to add like 4 more to give the full context, whereas Frank will give you the banger that's maybe after Elliott, but it's the full details in there, and then, yeah. So, all right, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe a little friendly bet on that, Elliott versus Frank.
Elliott versus Frank on this show. I think that should be like a constant thing that we've got going on here. We could play, beat reporter who's going to get the scoop. Johnny, with that said, we've got this news now that it seems a little premature. When you start to think about it's premature, where are you gauging this at, that Patrick Kane actually gets moved to New York? I was just reading that report that we talked about earlier on in the show from that New York report that came out, and I did see that there was another team mentioned in there. I believe it was the Maple Leafs. Could you potentially start to see? We did hear, although I want to back this up, we did hear that Patrick Kane will sort of give out one team at a time, or maybe 2 teams at a time. Do you see the Blackhawks being able to negotiate a good deal for Patrick Kane, or are we going to be extremely underwhelmed by whatever the return is here?
I think you'll get some quantity, right? Because you're talking about number of prospects or picks that are coming back, but I don't know if it's going to be the quality that Blackhawks fans feel is worthy of Patrick Kane's allure.
That's exactly what I'm afraid of, because there's going to be a mass revolt
It's an interesting situation because you have to do right by Kane, and this goes to his full no movement clause. So he has all the leverage here, and that takes all the leverage away from Kyle Davidson. And our guy Comiskey broke it down in that article that once again is in the comment section here about the plead for Patrick Kane to stay, basically. But that's one of the factors that plays into it, and that the Blackhawks aren't going to get the return that maybe you would feel like it's worthwhile for, because then if you're going kind of one team at a time like that, that team knows they're the only team. Like Kane has said that he will go then, and it's a matter of can we make this work out, and other teams can basically lowball. I mean, it's not going to be like, oh, we're not going to give you shit for him. It's not going to be like that lowball, but you know what I'm saying? Where's the value?
It's going to be
a little bit off.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to get the return that I think people are looking for here. Obviously, you had brought up some points too as well about, what's the PR spin on this? What's actually going on with the hip? Was that trying to bring the value down? And then, of course, like you mentioned, I think the biggest thing here is this is all in Patrick Kane's court. I think that I'm going to be underwhelmed with whatever return comes back. I don't know about you. I'm just going to be underwhelmed with it, no matter what it is.
I think I am too, because I think we know that draft picks are draft picks, and it's good to have capital. Don't get me wrong. There's been a reason why teams go and stockpile and trade players away for picks, and the Blackhawks acquired some nice picks, right? From like Brandon Hagel trade, obviously with the Cat and Doc trades last year, stockpiling picks. That's one thing, but there's no guarantee that those turn out how you want them to. And then also with prospects, you got like that Kravtsov guy. I heard there's, like I said, I'm not in New York Rangers Twitter like we are in Chicago Blackhawks Twitter, right? But there's fear that he may want to go back to the KHL because he's a Russian guy, started his career there, came over, has played a little bit with the Rangers here, but not really 8th overall pick sort of levels of production and minutes that you would expect, right? Granted, he's still young. I want to say he's only like 23 years old. However, we've seen Russian players sometimes want to go back to the K because they're going to make some better money there than they would at the NHL, given where their skill sets are.
Absolutely. It's going to be rough. I don't think we're going to get anything that comes back here and is really, eye popping off the charts the way that you would expect this in some other sports. That said, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, Johnny, in my opinion, for the Blackhawks to bring back some pieces at this deadline.
We've got another update. Tony.
Okay.
For Pierre LeBrun. It says from Patrick Kane's agent, Pat Brisson. Patrick has not made any decision at this point. Wow, that's it. I'm sure that's his text message that Pierre LeBrun got from Kaner's agent, but that's it. That's the extent of it.
All right, keep Kane as hashtag back. I love that. I love that we don't have a decision at this point in time. I'm feeling better as we go on here, Johnny. What do you think?
I think you are, well, for all of us, this whole process is just going to delay the inevitable pain. And now I kind of don't like it because the mental anguish is going to hang over me all night. Because based on David Pagnotta's tweet, doesn't sound like a deal's getting done tonight.
Don't stop believing. Hashtag keep Kane.
What sport is this?
It doesn't matter.
What team is this?
This is the Blackhawks. We're talking about the Blackhawks.
Is this the end of the Sopranos? Or are we just going to get cut to black?
No, we're going to just, well, who knows? But the world can end at any time, Johnny. That's just a known fact. We could be sucked up by a black hole before the Patrick Kane trade happens.
If Patrick Kane gets traded, I would probably just want the world to end at that point.
Yeah. Man, we're going to be doing this for a little while. Man, make sure I feel like I'm watching, overtime playoff hockey game right now with Twitter and looking for trade rumors and reports here from all the big NHL guys. This is absolutely fantastic fun. If you like, high blood pressure situations and, you can handle that, then this is fun for you. For others, it's probably not as much, Johnny. I know you get you get a little annoyed with these things during the baseball offseason or the baseball trade deadline. This one it hits home. It's a little bit more personal, especially when you talk about a guy who has done everything that Patrick Kane has done for the Chicago Blackhawks organization.
Yeah, because I think with the Keep Kane movement that we've been kind of pushing on the Twitter machine, especially given his recent performances, and it makes you appreciate him, and not that that ever dropped off, but you kind of faded into the background at certain points. Right when he went on IR, there was kind of like, oh, okay, like is this going to be slowed down sort of campaign. He wasn't putting up any eye-popping games. Maybe he'd score a goal or dish a nasty assist here and there, but now he's doing it. And I think EJ Radick on NHL Network today said that it was shades of, looked like you could have just expected that video. It was like the highlights of his last couple games to have been from like 8 years ago, right? So it kind of refocuses that perspective on it, Tony. I think that's where I'm at with it, and so it. So like Comiskey said, feels like we're on death row right now.
Well, Johnny, I before we got that update, which thank you for cutting in and giving that to everybody. I was talking about there's going to be plenty of opportunities for the Blackhawks to bring back something of value from this trade deadline. Let's talk a little bit about some of these other guys. Jake McCabe's name has been thrown around quite a bit today. I don't know if you have seen some of that stuff. But who do you expect to go in the next few days here? I would say Jake McCabe is one of them. Sam Lafferty is another one.
Hit me with any insight that you got from today, because I did not see anything on McCabe today. However, that's going to be the first name that I said. He's going to go because teams need defense. Team that we already did deal with. The Ottawa Senators have been looking for D. I think was it? Elliot on NHL Network. He did a little guest spot earlier today, and he had said all season long, Senators have been asking about any available D-man, and he figured that it wouldn't come until closer to the trade deadline. And maybe Jake McCabe is a trade deadline day deal that happens unless a team has a blatant injury, something that arises over the weekend here. But Jake McCabe would definitely be my top target, and I think he's been on Frank Saraspaghetti's trade targets over at Daily Faceoff for a long while now.
He has, and this was another one from the fourth period today on their show. David Pagnotta said it's not when, or it's not if, it's when the Blackhawks trade Jake McCabe. So
I agree with that.
I think that that was a name that we sort of tossed back and forth here a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago, on whether or not the Hawks would benefit from keeping him around another year. Or shipping him off right now. He's got 2 years left on this deal, remainder of this year, next year. So that's a name that it's got a contract attached to it that any team who's looking to bring in a quality defenseman will get an extra year out of. That's got to be something of value. Johnny, what do you think? At least a first round, maybe a second round pick there headlining that?
I don't think you're getting a first round for him.
Second round headliner?
I know that sounds more realistic in the second to third range there. I'm not great at completely sizing up returns on these, but it takes a significant, kind of chunk to get a first rounder. That's kind of tough. And I know defense is an area of need. However, Jake McCabe isn't necessarily, while he is a solid veteran defender, good presence, and he's finally been staying healthy over the last couple of seasons. That's all great and dandy, but his name doesn't warrant first round status, right?
I wouldn't say it warrants first round status. I just wonder what you'd be able to pull off with that extra year, and depending what else is out there in the defense market. If it's a very scarce trade market for quality defensemen with multiple years on their contract, you might be able to get something. I'm not GM Ron though. I'm not GM Ron, so maybe we need to ask him.
Maybe I think the only way that you could bump up that far, and maybe that could work in the Blackhawks' favor, is if Arizona is just stubborn as a bull and doesn't want to drop their asking price for Jacob Chychrun. So nobody's going to want to go and target him, and you're looking for a reliable guy on the back end. That may be something. And like you said, the scarcity of resources could play a factor into what the return eventually is there. But I agree with that report there that it's not a matter of if, it's when for Jake McCabe. And I would guess probably sometime next week when he goes. So let's move on to the next one. Sam Lafferty. I think another one pretty, not as sure as the if-when thing there with Jake McCabe, because forwards are also a little bit of a different breed when it comes to trade markets there. So I would say he's done enough this year, though, and his style plays well in the playoffs, which is something that competing teams are looking for here when you're talking about trade deadline acquisition. So he's my boy. We love him. We love the fire, passion, grit, TWTW, the toothless grin. But I could see Sam Lafferty. He's played himself into that kind of, great trade bait category.
He has, Johnny. Just his work on the penalty kill too all season for the Blackhawks has been tremendous. I think that he's probably a name that might go, but if I'm just going to guess a return, maybe something in the third, fourth round for Mr. Lafferty. Right. I think he winds up, in somebody's bottom six is a really, really nice depth piece. Might get himself a chance to go chase a cup. Max Domi is the next name I really want to talk about. Johnny,
I wanted to, because I wish I had more to tell you, but he is not someone that I've heard a lot of buzz in terms of actual legitimate suitors who are saying that, oh, we've called and checked in on Max Domi. Maybe if there has and I missed it, let me know in the comments here. But as far as I'm concerned, I haven't really seen anything concrete on it. Obviously, his play, and you look at his deal, that obviously all makes sense. It lines up. I think that's what we thought at the beginning of the year. It's, oh, yeah, this guy's easy trade bait flip at the deadline. But I just haven't seen anything materialize yet. And obviously, there's still a little over a week to go for it. But I would have thought we'd had a little more steam on someone like him over Sam Lafferty, right?
Yeah, and to an extent over Jake McCabe. I thought that both Andreas Athanasiou and Max Domi would have had all sorts of chatter around both of those guys, especially right when they were signed. And Domi's been playing some really great hockey over the last little stretch here. Obviously, a lot of people play really great hockey when they're on the line with Patrick Kane. But, those two kind of really found it. Like I said in the beginning of the show here, I'm surprised just as much as you are that there isn't like at least one or two teams that have been linked to Max Domi. And maybe just maybe that's because the Patrick Kane sweepstakes is sort of still open, and he's obviously the top tier forward that is on the market, or maybe not on the market, rumored. And so Max Domi sort of falls down to that second level. But I'm just like you, man. I'm a little bit surprised that there's not at least some sort of rumor about Max Domi right now. And, to an extent, I'll throw it down to Andreas Athanasiou as well.
Yep, I would absolutely agree with that on that front. I will say Athanasiou did hit a little bit of a dry patch that maybe negated some interest, or at least the team really jumping out and wanting to make that initial call to Kyle Davidson there on him, or maybe they have, and it just hasn't been leaked to the media. But there was, like I said, that dry spell in his play. Because if you're going to acquire a guy, if you're going to give up a draft pick, you're going to give up a prospect, it's got to be worthwhile, right? For thinking he can fit into a role on your team, and he's not exactly, basically, what does he bring you? He brings you speed. He does bring a good drive to net ability. However, he ain't going to kill penalties for you. He's not necessarily a power play, aficionado. I wouldn't call him, like Patrick Kane. Obviously, think like him, power play specialist, right? Not exactly the case for Andreas Athanasiou. His game's better in the open ice, and team that needs speed, sure, going at him, but he's not bringing you a whole lot of intangibles outside of that, and he's a winger, not a center.
Now, say they do move Patrick Kane, Max Domi, Sam Lafferty, and Andreas Athanasiou. Who's playing forward on the top line for the Chicago Blackhawks after
Jason
March?
Dickinson is absolutely first line center. That's number one. On the wings, though, Tyler Johnson, Cole Gutman, I think, has proved his way into that mix. You're probably going to give David Gust a run. He'll probably be a little bit lower in the lineup, but you're going to give him some run there. Taylor Radish, that's another one. I think I was listening to, not to go off on a tangent on him, but I just get the feeling that he's staying. Because he's another guy that, once again, we haven't heard a whole lot of rumblings, and it can change between now and next Friday. But I was listening just a little bit segment with Colby Cohen from NBC Sports Chicago. He was on with Frank on the Daily Faceoff show this morning. And this was just Colby saying that he would put Taylor Radish on one of those boards, but Frank didn't really seem to have anything to corroborate that in terms of teams asking, interested, all of that. So that's just something that I bring up. I would imagine he's here because guess what? He was part of the return last year that you got back from Brandon Hagel,
Yeah, so you might warrant a little bit of a longer look from this Blackhawks team.
Right.
I don't think that he's a guy that gets moved either, Johnny. Just for the mere fact of there's so many other guys that the Hawks can deal. I don't think anybody's calling in on Taylor Radish. I just don't.
Right. It is a nice little point production though when you do for what his ability is, where he's at in this stage of his career, and given the cast that's around us here, around him here in Chicago. So be interesting to see on that front there. But I think, look at Connor Murphy. I know he'd been mentioned a couple weeks ago by Frank alongside Jake McCabe, just in terms of trade targets, maybe a little bit of rumblings going on there. But I think that goes into his position, defenseman, teams that are going to be contenders looking for depth on the blue line.
Johnny, we've got one more update coming from Charlie Remiliotis. This is the first thing that we've had close to the team. Told there's nothing imminent on Patrick Kane on the trade front as of this moment. Rangers are likely protecting their assets by scratching those two players. Doesn't mean Kane to New York Rangers trade won't happen, just that a decision hasn't been made yet. So there's sort of a tone there, Johnny, if we want to read into that. It seems like these scratches happened for a Patrick Kane trade. I mean, you can infer that. You can infer that nothing is imminent. I've seen this happen in baseball, Johnny, and 5 minutes later, you've got the Frank and Elliott, versions going out there from Jeff Passan. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that little piece of information.
Right. Yep. I saw that. That's the latest on that front as well. So follow us on Twitter at Four Feathers Pod, because we're getting close to wrapping the show up here, Tony. We appreciate you guys sweating it out here, sharing a little bit of Patrick Kane, reminiscing at the same time here. But, we're going to have a lot more of this coming up in just over a week, Tony. We've got our Four Feathers Tank Center. We are going to get together and go live for a decent amount of that. Have a lot of content coming from you that day. So make sure you're following us at Four Feathers Pod and at On Tap Sports on Twitter and Instagram, because we'll be kind of doing our version of what you see on TSN's Trade Center.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that one, Johnny. And if we do have breaking Patrick Kane news, I would imagine that we'll be right back here on these airwaves. Follow us at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube. Thanks to everybody who came in here and partook in the live chat on YouTube. We can't see any comments from the Twitter side. I know we had quite a few people show up via Twitter. If you're watching from there, please hop in the YouTube, like and subscribe to that and interact with us. We enjoy the camaraderie and, like you had just said, sweating this out with you and I, Johnny, on the Patrick Kane trade that appears potentially imminent or maybe not. It's a roller coaster ride, as it always is with Blackhawks hockey.
Yep, absolutely. I think you put it best there, Tony. And that YouTube is youtube.com/OnTapSportsNet. So hit the little alert bell and you'll know when we go live. And obviously all of our great Chicago sports content across all of the major teams there. You can find all of that and at OnTapSportsNet.com. So Tony, just about ready to wrap it up here. Man, I'm nervous. I'm sweating a little bit right now. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm going to be glued to this phone, just watching just like everybody else is here. Man, this has been a wild last hour, Johnny. Wild last hour.
Yep. All right. That's all I've got for now. I'm sure as soon as we hop off, something will happen. So,
yeah, we might be back on these airwaves tonight. You never know.
That's just the way she goes. But once again, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you for sweating it out with us here at the Four Feathers Podcast. Until next time, Tony, Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.